Welcome back to another episode of the Million Dollar Body Podcast. I'm your host, Coach Nate, and today we're talking about the one macronutrient you need to be prioritizing if you want to maximize the way you look and the way you feel on a daily basis. And no, we're not talking about carbohydrates. I feel like carbohydrates is something that we bring up all the time with kind of the keto, anti-carb, carb crazy diets we see a lot of with the Atkins, the keto and the other kind of carb cycling diets that are all over the place that are the most popular things to talk about. But what we leave out a lot of times is protein. Today we're going to be talking about protein and why that's important for you, whether you're someone who's trying to make a living doing sales, selling a product or a service on a daily basis, or if you're building an empire, you're building a business right now, why this is an essential part of a nutritious plan for not only for your body and for your health, but also for your business, and why those two things tie hand in hand. Why do I believe so fervently that protein is going to make you more money? And I'm not a business coach. I can't help you sell more houses or sell more vacuums door to door, but I can help you maximize your energy, and I can help you maximize the way you look and you feel, which I know leads to more confidence when you step up to the plate to make your pitch, when you step up to the front of the boardroom to give a presentation, when you're put in charge in a meeting, you take leadership. I know that the more confidence you have, the better you're going to feel. And I think that all those things, if we take it all the way back, it starts with what you put in your body, right? If you're constantly showing up sluggish and tired and out of breath and being like, man, I could walk the stairs. It's only one flight, but I'd rather just take the escalator so that way I'm not sweating and out of breath when I hit this meeting. Like who wants to feel that way when you're trying to step up into something big in your life? So that's why I always think that if you want to be a leader, you need to take the stairs. And if you want to take the stairs, that you need to be eating in a way that's going to put your body and your mind in a energetic, healthy place where you can take 2 or 3 flights of stairs, no problem. Okay. So all that being said, protein, what is it? Why is it important? What does it do for your body? Can you have too much? How much is enough? We'll address all these questions on a quick podcast. And at the end of it, if you stick around, I'll give you a cheat sheet on the best proteins you can be taking in, where you can find them, what you need to be shopping for, and then how to basically put yourself in a place to be able to cook those right amount of protein. So, for example, to start, what is a protein and where do we get them from? Now, there's been a lot of talk about the vegetarian or vegan diets, and with that, I see a lot of people shifting over to vegetarian-style proteins, like plant proteins, that sort of thing. So a lot of pea proteins, hemp proteins. You'll see a lot of there's a couple other different types that people are using, and sometimes they'll combine them together, the rice proteins, to create like meal replacement shakes. And when I'm talking about protein today, I'm going to be talking about poultry. I'm talking about meat, like pork or beef. I'm talking about eggs. I'm talking about dairy products. Those are basically the best places to get a complete amino acid profile, which essentially means that you're going to get the right type of protein that's going to digest better for you. The problem with plant proteins is they're not as bioavailable. That means they don't digest as well for a lot of people. They're a little bit more expensive. They're harder to make from a chemical perspective. So like you don't just get proteins from peas. A lot of people are like, well, did you see that 5 grams of broccoli technically has more protein than 5 grams of steak? Yeah, but you have to eat so much damn broccoli to get that amount than you do with the steak. You know what I mean? People will put these, say like, oh, well, it's actually this, but technically, in terms of the protein to weight, maybe broccoli wins, but But have you ever tried to eat 6 cups of broccoli? It's disgusting. That's terrible. Who would ever want to do such a thing? So at the same, and in order to get that same amount of protein, you'd have to eat literally like 3 ounces of meat. Like that's a no-brainer. Okay, so when you have the animal proteins, what you have is what they're breaking down into is called essential amino acids. There are 9 essential amino acids, and they all do different things. Essential amino acids basically mean that our body is not capable of producing those on our own. And amino acids are basically just the building blocks of protein. So think about if you have like a super sick Lego X-Wing TIE fighter, right? And you pull all those pieces apart, you have a bunch of Legos now. The Legos are the amino acids. The TIE fighter is the protein. Okay, think about it in terms of that. They're just building blocks. So when we eat chicken or steak or yogurt or eggs or whatever it is, then our stomach breaks all that down into amino acids where those are then allowed to do their functions within our body. So most people think protein equals muscle, and you're not wrong, but protein is so much more than that. Amino acids do so many more things in our body, including help you build better neurotransmitter connections. So like if you like feeling happy and satisfied and having like great dopamine and serotonin levels on a daily basis, great. Protein will help you with that. One amino acid, and you don't have to know this because I'm not giving you a test later, is called phenylalanine, and that is called a precursor for several neurotransmitters: dopamine, epinephrine, norepinephrine, a couple other ones. But it's what I'm saying is vital for you to feel good and to have the energy you need on a daily basis. So going back to how is this going to make you more money? It's going to give you the ability to use better brain function. so so when the protein breaks down in our stomach, it helps us not only rebuild and repair our muscles, but also rebuild and repair cartilage, soft tissue, joints, ligaments, tendons, everything that you want in terms of your body. When you talk about like detoxing your body or doing a cleanse, what we're looking for is out with the old, in with the new, right? And your body already does that on purpose. It's a built-in system you have. It's called autophagy, and it's a fancy word for meaning that when you're not eating, when you're not digesting food, your body is taking out old tissues that are broken down, cells that are no longer working, expelling those, and then installing new amino acids or new proteins or new tissues based on the food you're eating. So if you're eating high quality, nutritious foods that are going to provide your body with the level of nutrition that you need, then when your body goes through that autophagy process, when you're fasting or you're sleeping or you're just not putting food in your mouth, that's a thing people do sometimes is, they go for hours without eating, sometimes 2 or 3 even. So if you spend 2 or 3 hours not eating, your body goes into that process, autophagy. So the longer you can go, the more intense that process gets, the better it feels. So I'd encourage you, if you've never tried a fasting protocol before, try 24 hours. It's going to, especially if you can preempt that with a great meal on the front end and then have a great meal on the back end as well, it's going to make that very, very easy for your body to replace and restore those old tissues, okay? And you can't do that without amino acids. So that's why I'm not a proponent of a vegetarian or vegan diet for physique purposes. If you love it for the environment or for animal rights or anything like that, great, do your thing. Like there's no argument that I can make about that. But if you're like, I want to go vegetarian or vegan in order to look a certain way, you're not going to do it right. That's objectively not going to work for you, and you're going to eventually feel bad, come back, and then binge on Cinnabons. And we don't want to see that. I don't want you to go down that road. Let's be honest. So, what about too much protein? Is that such a thing? Is it dangerous to be eating protein? No, it's not. You know what's dangerous? Is smoking or walking around in the streets or living in in New York. That's probably more dangerous than eating protein. I actually put out a post not the other day, the other day being like 2014, when there's a big hullabaloo on social media about how eggs are worse for you than smoking. Do you guys remember this? This is like kind of like this preempted like the fake news, but it was largely bullshit, paid for by some like food manufacturer that didn't want to see you eating eggs. I think it was like the cereal industry or something had sponsored this study. Eggs are worse for you than smoking. Cholesterol kills. So I put out another post that was talking about how whey protein isolate, when consumed with water, was actually one of the leading causes of death, because if you look at the data, anyone who's eaten whey protein isolate consumed with water has died or will die, and you just can't argue with those numbers. So that article received a good amount of attention on Reddit. Some people really thought it was hilarious, like me, and then some people thought I was very, very stupid. So, just the internet, I guess. Anyways, how much protein is going to kill you? Well, unless you have some sort of pre-existing kidney condition where you can't process it, or you're a baby, or there's something going on where your kidneys are totally impacted by organ fat and you are on the verge of death anyways, protein by itself is not going to be the thing that gets you. All right. So if you're like, oh no, I ate so many of those chicken breasts the other day, this is it for me. Guess what? You're going to be okay. You're fine. I'm here to tell you, as a doctor, as a scientist, I'm not a doctor or a scientist, that you're going to be fine and you're going to make it through this one. In fact, there are really no recorded cases of like protein being of too much protein being the thing that causes harm to a person who is not contraindicated by some other medical condition. That being said, I don't think you should go out and try to see how many chicken breasts you can eat in a single meal, not because of the protein thing, just because that's disgusting. And have you ever tried to eat 3 chicken breasts, much less like 6 or 12? It's very difficult and you won't like it. And then for like 6 months afterwards, you won't like chicken breasts at all. So I'm trying to save you from that. You're welcome. You're welcome. So what is the proper amount of protein to have? How many grams of protein do you need to maximize this process, the process of autophagy, the process of rebuilding your muscles, having enough amino acids in your system to restore and recover appropriately? That is a great question, and there's a lot of research that shows the answer is for a person who's training. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're not training, well, you better fix your life. Secondly, I don't think there's any of you on here, but the answer is 0.88, so 0.88 grams per pound of body weight. So round that up to the nearest cool number, which is 1 gram per pound of body weight is about what you need. If you're like, man, I'm 350, I need 350 grams of protein. No, pick your ideal body weight instead. If you're 5'10", that's probably like closer to 200. So if you're trying to drop weight, pick the number that you're trying to get to. If you're trying to gain weight, pick the number that you're trying to get to, and then just go with 1 gram per pound. Okay, now here's the cool part. If you are trying to use this as a way of actually getting better results in your life, your business, your relationships, your physique, all those things, here's what you do. I'm going to tell you how to set your diet up, and you're going to be set, and you're not going to do this because no one ever does when I tell them. But what you need to do now is you need to determine what you do on a daily basis. Are you working out 7 days per week and working a hard manual labor job? If so, you're going to take that same number of grams of protein and basically give yourself an equivalent number of grams of carbs, if not up to 50% more. If you're that person who's hyperactive all the time, just twitchy, just you basically like people are always asking you like, are you on meth right now? And you're like, no, I'm not on meth. And people are like, yeah, right. If that's you, more carbs, okay? If you're that kind of like twitchy, always bouncing around, super active, working out all the times, more carbs. If you are someone who's working out 3 times per week, probably hitting a spin class here and there, working at a desk job, we're going to put that about half of your protein levels. So if you're having 200 grams of protein, how about like 100 grams of carbs? That's probably about all you need. You can also get into these more complicated scenarios called carb cycling, which is an awesome way to do it, which is basically putting your carbs on the days you need it, which is the days you're doing more exercise, more physical exertion. But you could, but that's obviously getting a little bit more complicated. And keeping things simple is kind of is more important for most people because most of us aren't out here with like an abacus and a notepad, keeping dedicated notes on the grams of protein and isoleucine we're getting in said protein. So just do that. Make it the easy way, and then use the fat to kind of fill in. So always go with protein first, then figure out your grams of carbs based around your activity level, and then fat fills in the gaps, okay? Most of the time for most of us, it's not hard to get fat. Fat's in everything, and it's just people just sneak it in there. You're like, oh, this is a great apple. And someone's like, wouldn't it be a shame if there was some canola oil on that? But like fat, if you're having processed foods, majority of the time it's going to have more fat than you think. So that kind of just sneaks up. That number's easy to hit. So figure out your carbs and your proteins. Those are the 2 more difficult ones. You can structure your diet around that, and I guarantee you're going to be hitting the right amount of fats. Basically, if you're optimizing for your carbs and your proteins. Okay. So bottom line is, protein is essential. It breaks down into amino acids. It does more than build muscle. It builds enzymes, repairs tissues, helps you with your joints, your ligaments, your tendons. It helps you with your neurotransmitters, helps you feel better, helps you have more energy. It's very essential. So how can we make sure that we're getting enough? Well, number 1, you need to be having protein at every meal. Every time you eat, there needs to be a protein source with it. So if you're gonna have a snack, there's got to be a protein with it. If you're gonna have a dinner, it has to have protein with it. If you're going to go into the kitchen and find something to eat, you better find a damn piece of protein to go along with it, or don't have it. And like, okay, that sounds maybe a little harsh, maybe a little bit like, oh, I'm going to be so restrictive. No, that's just the rule that lean people follow. You want to be lean, you need to eat protein at every meal forever. And if you don't like that, I'm sorry, that's the way it is. Okay. I'm not trying to sugarcoat this for you because you probably eat that, but you got to have protein at literally every meal for the rest of your life. That's just the way it needs to be. Okay, so curious what you think about that. If you're like, oh, what else are protein in? Is that in peanut butter? I have a great list for you, something you can download. You just go, if you go to n8trainingsystems.com/group, n the number 8 trainingsystems.com/group. We'll jump into that Facebook community, $1 Million Body. I'll give you the best list of proteins. And what I have it actually broken down into is so proteins that are just straight proteins, and then proteins that have carb component, and then proteins that have a fat component, and then listed from best to worst to make your life just a lot easier. Because let's be honest, if you're trying to figure out a way to eat protein at every meal for the rest of your life, you're gonna need a couple different options, right? I don't want you like one of my clients who eats clams and oatmeals after his every training session, because that sounds horrible. And I want you to make this easier, not harder for yourself. So if that's the case, if you want that, let me know. I'll hook it up. Other than that, I really hope you enjoy your high protein dinner tonight and for the rest of your life. Coach Nate out. I'll talk to you soon.